Alrighty. Okay, so this has been about 2 weeks actually. 2 weeks tomorrow since the last stream. So my last draconian discourse that was 2 weeks ago at this point. Had a lot going on, quite a lot going on. Um, but I wanted to have just a quick one, shoot a quick one out here, because I had a couple of thoughts that I wanted to discuss. Probably won't take up too much time with these. As I'm getting set up, though, um, one thing I was gonna say was I what I was gonna briefly say was I've been struggling with this laptop for about as long as I've had it, and the entire reason why I'm struggling with it is because Dell refuses to actually have like a good product. What's the word? Essentially, they want to make it as difficult as possible to continue using the hardware that you bought from them, that you own, that they sold you. Um, and they just want to make it as difficult as possible for you to use it manageably. So they want it so difficult that it's just like, oh well, better just buy a new one then. Um, so for the people who either don't want to or cannot buy a brand new laptop from them, or whatever, um, they they just sideline you. So it's kind of great. It's caused a billion problems. Like, how do I even start to, like, where do I even begin? I believe I had battery issues at first. I had speaking of which, I can hear it, the fans in it kicking up. I've had I replaced the battery only recently, and then I had what else did I have? Goodness sake, that might actually be you might actually be able to hear that on stream. Um, but the like it's like the default like speed step and everything. The CPU only wants to go to like 2.5 gigahertz, and it has like 3.2 gigahertz that it can go to, but it's like, nope, you don't get that. And then it has like on the hardware level um, a limitation so that if you are using all four cores, you can only go a maximum of like 3.1. I believe it's 3.1 gigahertz. Um, so it's like even if you're trying to max it out, even if you went in and like I had to at the CPU level disable things and enable things, like I had to actually whip out like epic hacker man skills in order to just tell the CPU to use um to allow me to undervolt it. So I went in and undervolted it, so that was cool, that was nice. But then no matter what, I just can't make it so all four cores go at maximum. So they paired that, soldered onto the motherboard with a 1080, a 10 NVIDIA 1060 Max Q, 6 gigabyte, which is like a perfectly fine processor, right? But they soldered it onto a motherboard, like it's the same board with a CPU that can't really take it. So you're just sitting there with this and then they kneecap that CPU so that it only runs at 2.5 gigahertz. And it's like, why would you even put a 1060 in this machine if you couldn't put like an i7 to go with it? And apparently they have i7 models, but like it's just ridiculous. It is actually insane. And what I'm currently dealing with is an NVIDIA driver issue that apparently causes like whatever the latest drivers are to um, run in the kernel, in the system, where it's just got like, I don't even know, whatever it is, like NVIDIA something just chilling there, like being worthless and taking up, like it's like I could see, I went in and like dug in, and I was like, it's 15% on the CPU, um only 15%, like that it's just always going to be chilling at 15%. And it's like, why I uninstalled and like disabled uh, the GPU for a bit, and then it was fine. But if you install whatever drivers, then it's just not going to work. So it's like, man, like if it's like it's just intended to kill my battery life. It's like designed, and I think that's like a different issue entirely, right? Like I don't think Dell has control over whatever bugs are, and I'm pretty sure it's a bug with the NVIDIA driver, but it's still quite ridiculous, and I'm sick of it. Um, because like I just want to be able to edit on the go, and that's like pretty much it. But they have so many hurdles with this stupid laptop just to be able to do that. And oh man, I've had quite the day with troubleshooting with that thing, and I swear like it's been the most like black hole of a time sink of any troubleshooting issue that I've had with like any individual computer system I've ever worked with. It's insane. But anyhow, I wanted to look at, let's see if this is set up properly. It is not. I've got to put that, there we are, and then do this, and then we've got, this should be playing, yeah, should be playing through the desktop audio. Gonna bring it up just a little bit, and hopefully that should be good. So yeah, so to start off, this is a very interesting topic. It's a very fascinating topic, to be sure. I do enjoy, of course, I enjoy discussions of these types of topics. But this was brought to my attention because I've seen a couple of this. His name's Jim. This fellow's TikToks, and it's basically just like, funny TikToks about, sort of Native American culture and kind of ragging on that. Ragging on, like, I don't know. It's just talking about it, riffing on it. I think that's what I was ragging on, is to like give someone grief. But this is like a, he just likes showing some of the aspects of his culture off and whatnot. So what I found interesting about this wasn't so much okay, so the topic is on skinwalkers, which is something that I've seen it in comments before, where people get super superstitious about this, and I'm not necessarily judging them for being superstitious. I can get superstitious about all sorts of things. I've just never been convinced on this one, because it's just the idea. It's a cryptid, by definition, and you know. I think I may have seen people arguing about it, where it's just like, it's not a cryptid. It's like, yeah, it by definition it's a cryptid. Like, do you know what the definition of cryptid is? Like, it was just sort of bothersome to see lots of people getting kind of heated about this. And this is the thing you got to know about me. This is why the show exists here, is because I have a bit of an autistic fixation with pedantry, with being pedantic, with just having good arguments, good argumentation. And so I think with when I see people making imperfect arguments that are wildly, just a lot of the times just ridiculous, it just gets at me. So it's like I always have these thoughts like spin around my mind, and I think it's just sort of better for me, like if I have some sort of an outlet to be able to put them in. So I don't know how long all episodes are going to be. There's probably going to be some wild difference in episode length, but yeah, I'm kind of happy to figure this out. Also, Apple Podcasts Connect is a bitch, and it is just not doing at all what I have been trying to get it to do, which has really, really bothered me as well. Isn't it great, like, having technology that just is designed in such an abhorrent way, with bugs that have existed for forever, and they just don't want to fix, and the only way that you can fix it is by going and like calling up the podcast connect people themselves, getting on like some sort of a AI chat and spending hours out of my day when they could just learn to code and like fix this stupid service. And anyhow, that's not here what I was here to rant about, but yeah, that's the way it be. With everything, yeah, it's just the way that the technology tends to be. Things are complicated, I guess, if I could just put it in a single sentence. But anyhow, with superstitions, like I do believe in a certain amount of spirituality, a fair amount of spirituality. I do believe in some things that cannot be explicitly seen or proven. The way that I sort of rationalize that is that there sort of the bottom line principle, bottom line rule is you can speak in a completely scientific way about, you got this, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you've got a ton of things that sort of, that you can explain scientifically. Plenty of things that we can document and explain scientifically at great detail. But eventually, there are some things that you cannot explain that really do require some sort of a, you know, I guess you could call it just an educated guess. But like, you end up with something that can't be explained, where it's like, well, I can't exactly explain what that is. So the underlying, you know, idea is that there's not exactly a scientific explanation for it where I can tell you exactly what's going on a molecular level or on a psychological level when certain supernatural things, happen, and are documented to happen. But it's like I know that there's something fishy going on with that, where it's like I'm not. I want to take everything with a grain of salt. I want to make it all with only if you can prove it to me will I then truly believe in what I've been presented with. But at a certain point, and this is sort of the point that I'm going to get on to, is that it becomes religious with many people, and that's where it starts to bother me, where it's, rather than being as rational about the topic as we can, and you can have some immensely rational and objective discussions on the topic of spiritualism and on the topic of uh, superstition. There is superstition, but it's like what people will effectively do when it comes to some superstitions that aren't really like associated with a specific like sect of like denominational religion, it suddenly becomes okay to force those superstitions on somebody else, to force those religious unverified subjective beliefs on somebody else. And in the same way as if you have any belief, you should be able to rationally prove that belief. And if all that I get from you is like hearsay about it, it's really hard to take it at face value. It's like, well, I've got to consider what could actually be true about this. So I've got to interface with an actual tangible thing that I can we have no explanation for why exactly, and I suppose I could go into what I think my most rational explanation for ghosts or whatever it may be. I think there are all sorts of things like that where you can't exactly explain. It's like there's nothing physically there. There's no chemical or atomic like there's nothing corporeal there that makes a ghost be a ghost, but there's still some very strange things going on. Um, could it be possible that a sort of social contagion, and that belief sort of feeds into it? I do think that plays a hand in it. Could it be possible that it's like a, what's the word? Um, I just a delusion of some sort, or people making things up. People make things up all the time. Things get staged, and that's totally something to be aware of when someone is bearing false witness in that way. But I think it's important to keep in mind that there are some things where it's like, well, what if the things that we can't explain? What if a soul had a scientific basis somewhere, where it's not just psychology, it's not just random chance, it's not just chemicals, dancing in your brain to make you feel and think a certain way. What if the person who you are is contingent on more than the body? What if there was something that was actually there? And what if that's something sometimes when we depart this life we leave behind? Um, I think that, perhaps under an immense amount of strife, if you consider the universe to be a sort of, as a sort of canvas, a physical space to move around, if you consider it as a simulation, you could say that, the things that you do when you're moving around physically in life, your soul is going through the motions and whatnot, and it's sort of like you teach the simulation in a sense to get used to your movements there, and then once you're gone, it kind of forgets that you're gone, so it'll just randomly like preload certain things. So if you always used to seeing on the way to work, if you always uh ate lunch at a certain time or whatever it is, it's like there have been many a documented case of, hey, it's this time, that was the time that person killed themselves, it's this time, that was the time when they always used to do this thing, and so I can hear them whistling or whatever it is. It's like there's sort of another realm residing with some sort of a cross section within our own, where there's things that we can't physically prove that are there, except for perhaps temperature changes and audible sounds and physical disturbances. But there's definitely something kooky going on when something like that happens. And when you get enough of it happening throughout the entirety of human history, um, does it stand to reason that perhaps there is something to that? And I think that that's probably the most logical argument that you can have for it. It's not that ghosts are inextricably real, but that there is a scientific basis. We just don't understand it. As they say, to a, what's the word? If you go back in time and show a caveman technology, he's going to think it's magic. If you go, you know, if you show mankind magic, the modern man, if you show the modern man magic, he thinks it's technology. So it sort of shows how cynical, scientific, um, I suppose skeptical is a better word than cynical, but like it goes to show really that the skeptical nature of science is sort of has its limits in a way, where it's like, well, if it was truly magic, where it's breaking the laws of science, and the way that I see it, as what was it in Thor? Most people, I feel like, don't really remember the first Thor movie or any of them before Ragnarok, because they were like kind of uneventful. I like the first Thor one. I think it had its issues, but it was a fun one. It was memorable. I shouldn't say nobody remembers that. It's pretty memorable. But he says, here you have technology and science, and here we've got and you used to talk about magic or whatever, but where I come from, they're one and the same, like that type of a thing, where it's like, just because we can't understand it doesn't mean that it's just magic, where it's like, well, the rules of what I understand to how things to work are broken. It's like, well, you put me back in time, into the times of the Bible, and and I tell them, well, God told you that you shouldn't eat, gave you the law of Moses, gave you all these laws about what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat, and all of that. He gave you those because you weren't ready to, it's because you don't process the food properly. You can eat pig, you can eat you can break all of the rules where it's like, well, yeah, it has to split the foot in this way, but if it has a tail that looks like this, or if it comes from the air and has a talon with this, like all of the details that they put into that part of the Bible where explicitly, is that the law of Moses? Well, I believe it's part of the law of Moses. Law of Moses is like, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, plus, you know, either way, it's like, if you put me back in that time and say, well, yeah, God told you that because you don't know how to do it, like, right. You haven't developed, you haven't scientifically understood. Like, that was back in the day. I mean, and actually it continued for thousands of years after that, where there were people who were, and there are people today, people who will put a potato in the corner of the room and let it rot because they think it's absorbing the spirits from the evil spirits from the room and detoxifying the house. That there were people who thought that if you put a meat, like a slab of meat, then it's like the maggots that were growing on it were like something about souls. Like, I don't even, people thought crazy things to today's modern understanding of science. So perhaps one day science will be able to delve into souls in a way that uh, I don't want to have any spoiler alerts, but souls are very, very much a scientific thing in my belief. I just am not at liberty to prove that, but either way, um, I think that's a pretty good introduction, a pretty good setup for everything that I kind of want to talk about today. Um, I can say that I have a belief. I think that's a good example. I can say that I have a belief that the soul behaves in a scientific way, is a scientific corporeal thing, that it's just we can't inter intercept, engage with corporeally. We have to do it indirectly, but it still has a very tangible effect on this realm. I can say that and talk about whatever other beliefs I have to Kingdom Come, but in order for me to tell you to do anything about that, then you need to also believe in that. I need to convince you about it. Before we can actually talk about, okay, now that we agree that this is a thing, how does that change the way we live our lives? What does that make us do? What greater understanding does that give us so that we have, the ability to do something, or greater knowledge, whatever it may be. And it's funny, the way that I see it, it's, whatever the belief is, if you can't back up and prove what you believe, why you believe what you believe, you really have no business believing it, and you especially have no good right to be able to tell other people to operate off of your faith. What you have to do is help build their faith in whatever your faith may be, and then you have to eventually get them to the point where they have the understanding, or at least an adequate understanding that you have. An equivalent understanding, some may say. So, in the same way that, this is what frustrates me about this, is that there is a big old, what's the word, big old double standard when it comes to, which religious thinking we are allowed to, tolerate. Because if you believe everything you see on the news, on the mainstream media, then it's okay for you to tell other people, to operate off of your faith in the mainstream media, to operate off of your faith in, I don't know, whatever the political policy they're telling you should believe in is, whatever. It's like there is no respect for anybody else's ability to think differently, because it's religious thinking, it's faith based. They see it a certain way, so they think, how could you be so stupid as to think a different way? And they actually attribute both stupidity and evil. They believe that that you are evil for not thinking the way that they think. So it's you know really, when you see, I don't know how to describe it. Perhaps I would attribute it to liberalism or wokeism or whatever the current term is that people like to toss around. It's, I don't know what, historians will truly be like the real deciders of that, I suppose. But you know, you take that sort of like the cult of um identity politics, the cult of just, I suppose, politics in general, that gets pretty religious, gets pretty cultish. Um, and you compare that to, what else is something that you're allowed to think religiously about? Pseudosciences like astrology. Um, Astrology is a pseudoscience. It's funny because I took a college class in astronomy, and the first thing that our teacher said when she started that class was, "This is not astrology. This is astronomy. Astronomy is the study of stars. Astrology is the study of, you know, it's not even the study though. Is the funny thing about astrology. But it's an ology, I guess you could say. Astrology is the study of how the stars affect um, what's going on the Earth, um, in more of a, you know spiritual sense, I suppose. But the funny thing is that it's just, you know right after that she said pseudosciences. What are pseudosciences? It's stuff that uses things that have a scientific basis, but then all of its conclusions that it draws from it um, aren't actually scientific. It doesn't logically follow from anything that there's no proven um, way to link these two things. So it's like astrology, you can track, you know, is Mars in retrograde, is, what your star sign is, and technically everyone's star signs is, vastly shifted off of where the calendar was back in the day, because of the way that the stars have changed position. Or changed position to us. I believe it's just because of the Earth, and its cycles and whatnot. Either way, you can study where the stars are and what they're doing, and where the planets are and how everything in the sky is moving, without Hubble telescopes. You use your regular old earthbound telescopes, and you can track the stars with immense accuracy. But you can't prove that does really jack when it comes to your mood in the day. And so you have to operate on faith at that point. um and that's the thing, is that there's never really been any study to show that when Mercury is in retrograde, it moves in this way and it causes something. And I think, even if there was a study, like, I feel like that would actually lessen people's enthusiasm in astrology. I really would be kind of fascinated to see why there are so many people interested in astrology now versus previous generations. Because I swear we didn't, to my perception, I swear we didn't used to take it so seriously. Um, but now it's like kind of crazy. I remember, you know, I think it just kind of goes to show where people put it on the sort of spectrum. Because I feel like where the way that the cultural dynamic went in America, within, I don't know, the past 20 years or so, has gone from being largely Christian to sort of the pendulum swinging to atheism and agnosticism. Like, atheism being, I do not believe in a god, and then agnosticism being, I can't prove or disprove, so I really just am neutral on the subject, in a sense. Um, but I remember, so So it's like you get a lot of rejection of Christian standards, of Christian beliefs when it comes to like, oh, I don't know, flying spaghetti monster, or you believe in like some funny man in the sky and whatnot, which it's like, yeah, you can't prove that there's a funny man in the sky. And to all scientific evidence, there's no, objective proof of there being um a higher being. But let me say that the more that I perceive, um, I mean, it does, it kind of says in the Book of Mormon, all things denote that there is a God. The more that I perceive um, the world and the universe, and the more that I, um, and that's what's kind of funny. I was listening to a podcast like earlier today where, uh, yesterday it was Rhett and Link talking about deconstructing faith, and I believe it was Rhett. Uh, yeah, it was Rhett, and he said, "Hello, No Name, how you doing?" Um, Rhett said, the more that I looked into it, the less that I believed, and for me, it's like, I don't know, with my power of discernment, look, the more that I take in, the more that I believe, and that's what's kind of interesting. Um, you can't prove in an objective, measurable way that there's a higher being. You can't prove in an objective, measurable way that there is a correlation between the movements of the stars and the moods of the human beings living here on Earth. You can't objectively measure the ability of a soul to be left behind, to leave a ghost behind. You can't objectively prove any of these things, but if you can take someone down your journey long enough and talk about these things long enough, and as long as they're willing to hear you out, it is possible to, depending on how skeptical they are, depending on if they have any arguments that or doubts in what you're saying, to be able to make them think that, like, I think the best that you can do is to convince other people. I, One of the things that I think will never be not possible is to be able to convince anybody that you believe what you believe. It's like I believe that you believe it, but that doesn't mean that I believe it. Is I think sort of the predicament that a lot of people get in when having sort of those discussions. But it's like, okay, you're not making it up. I believe that you believe it, but I still think that there's something more to have made you believe that. You may have gone into some sort of delusional state, or whatever it is that they will use to try and scientifically explain why you have gone down that road. So to tie it all up in a bow, the way that I see it, I do believe in supernatural things. My definition for that being, in this context, things we can't explain and can't measure and can't prove, but that there's enough of it documented to have happened, that there's something that we can't explain there that is real. There's a big old reason why that unexplainable stuff happens. So with an open mind, I want to respond to some of these videos that I found on TikTok the other day. I think that's about it. Let's hop on over here. This is Jim. Jim is his name. Just makes a couple of funny videos. So yeah. Oh right, and the context for this, of course, is that um, a skinwalker in all sorts of different Native American cultures, to my understanding. Like, I don't know if there's like a particular culture that sort of lays claim to the what's the word, to that existing as a thing. Um, like I'm not certain if that's what's the word, uh like, it's like, was it a certain tribe that sort of came up with it? Did they all have different names for it? I don't know where the name Wendigo, for example, comes from. I suppose I could search that up. Um, oh, Algonquin. That's how you say that, right? Algonquin. I'm trying to. Algonquian. I thought I was better than this at figuring out pronunciations, but um, oh, it's native language groups. Oh, so Algonquin is the the language group of people who were presiding in present day Canada and into sort of the kind of across the entirety of the United States, not like down into Mexico, which of course were the Incas, Aztecs, and Mayans, but sort of probably most of the native cultures that we associate with native, at least to my like top of off the top of my head, that sort of seems like it's pretty representative of like a majority of those. The Wendigo comes from Native American tales and stories. Yeah. Um, Algonquian folklore, and Algonquian is talking about the what's the word? Freaking that single thing. Microsoft Edge actually just threw off my entire groove. But like that's many different tribes speaking sort of similar languages to my understanding. So it's not just coming from one tribe, but so the word uh, or the concept of the Wendigo of skinwalkers comes from sort of one place, or one group of cultures. Okay, so it does make sense. I'm glad I kind of looked into that. Hello, Adrian. How you doing? Um, I'm glad I looked that up because this sort of helps me understand a little bit better. It's coming from more than one, like, 'cause, like that was sort of my question at first was like, is this coming um from like one culture, or is this coming from like like it seems to be pretty widespread across many tribes and many cultures that perhaps had a single mother tribal culture at some point, but that's for the non-armchair anthropologists to determine. Did Apple Podcast end up working? No, it did not. I still haven't figured it out. I think I'm gonna have to actually like sit on with the support to be able to figure out how the stupid service works, or rather doesn't work. I think they actually have to do something on their side in order to fix it. I don't think there's anything I can do. Anyhow, oh right, and the context for the Wendigo, it's a creature where it's a, skinwalker. I think most people are familiar with this concept of I think people are familiar with the folklore, but it's a creature that sort of mimics uses mimicry in order to lure human beings as their prey in a sense. Um, so it's like it's mostly auditory to my understanding. The mimicry is auditory, but it can be physical to a certain degree. Um, the generally uh, keep on track. They are like attracted in the middle of the night through whistling. So if you are in Appalachia and you're in the middle of the night, you're out there and you whistle, then you're going to invite whether it be and that is part of the it's either it's a spirit or it's a skinwalker or Wendigo itself. Part of the trouble is that Wendigo is seen as an invitation to like that. I've seen people with sort of talk about certain rules or something like that. Like people went crazy on TikTok, and this is sort of why it's kind of been spilling around in my mind, where people are getting really upset and superstitious and religious and trying to force it on other people that you're not allowed to say the word Wendigo, because it invites, it sort of invokes it. So it it can appear or whatnot. And my trouble with that is that, if I don't believe it exists, then I don't believe that that word has any power. So I'm not going to have any issue with using it. Just because you think that it has a certain amount of power doesn't give you the right to force me to not use it. Um, I'm trying to remember some of the wording that I had. I suppose we'll get into that. Supernatural made an episode about skinwalkers. They had a storyline of how a guy was a family's dog for years, and when his gang of skinwalkers attempted to kill his family, he revealed his identity and saved them. They didn't accept him after that, so he ran off. A guy was a family's dog for years? I don't know if I'm reading that properly. My reading comprehension, I swear, just goes down when I start streaming. How was a guy a family's dog? He was a skinwalker. Okay, so the skinwalker mimicked the dog, and then it was the dog for years, and then it brought all of its friends and tried to kill the entire family. Oh, right. He revealed his identity, saved him. So he sort of became a stray, a lone wolf after that, because he betrayed them, in a sense. That is interesting. I like sort of the idea that, even though it's a creature that whose sort of purpose is to bring together, like to take advantage of them, that it still has, sort of feelings somewhere under there where it can actually, even in an animalistic sense, gain a sense of compassion for what would normally be its prey. Um, that is very interesting. But let me just continue the video, because I think I'll get onto some of the topics I wanted to talk about if I just watch this.
Ain't that the fucking truth?
No lie, one of the hardest slaps I'd ever taken in my entire life was when I was hanging out with a couple of buddies from the res. We were walking around at night, and I just happened to let out a...
Like, just to reiterate, he says one of the hardest slaps he ever took in his life. The hardest he'd ever been physically hit in the face with somebody's open palm in his entire life was when he whistled at night. And I find it kind of funny that, people consider it to be religious trauma when you are told as a kid that you need to, like, I don't know, that there's a higher purpose for you, that you aren't perfect the way you are, or to whatever degree that it is, that it becomes a lot more religious. Because let me think of a good example. I think it is fair enough when people are bothered by, as young women being told that they need to cover up because the young men can't help themselves, or whatever it may be. I think there's a lot of validity in acknowledging that there are things that are based off of religious teachings that place blame onto people that is unfair, and punish people and give them these sort of constant rules that replay in their head a million times. And sometimes those rules or principles or statutes are enforced in a way that is it can be abusive, but it crosses a certain line at a point where it's like, what you believe is supposed to help people, but the way that you deal with it doesn't isn't fair to the people who you are trying to teach it to. So I understand if you believe that whistling at night is going to summon a creature that will get you all killed, then perhaps it's warranted to prevent somebody from doing that and ever doing it again. But if I don't believe in it, then you slapping me is not going to convince me. It's going to make me pissed off at you. And it's not going to make me, like, I'm going to perceive that as delusional, and a friendship with you is going to be very untenable if you are going to treat me that way. So, understanding sort of those cultural barriers and those religious barriers, and understanding sort of, if you don't want somebody to behave a certain way, you just give them a warning before they go in to interact with that culture, and keep that sort of as a reminder in their head. But it's never going to be okay to slap someone in the face, or even to a certain degree to shout them down over doing something that you think is a concern but they don't understand. um I it just I think it gives you, it creates more enemies than it does positive results for your for your cause when you do that.
And I got bitch slapped. In the matter of
Like, why is
12
that
seconds,
okay?
I got hundreds of years of Native American legend and folklore shouted at me and explained why I cannot whistle at night. And I absolutely
And that's the thing. The shouting is not going to help you understand. It's just going to, like, freak you out. You're gonna be like, what did I do? What's going on? Like, I understand that there's a folklore, there's a belief, there's a, you know, superstition, but, you know, you can't just bring someone along that road. Like as I was saying, I don't believe that skinwalkers or wendigos exist. But if perhaps you told me enough stories, if you brought me a lot, along, and sort of shared that aspect of your culture with me, I begin to understand why you were concerned about it. Because it's like, sort of the way I see it, I think that ghosts do exist. I think that spiritual, souls, and a lot of, things like that do exist, but I can't exactly explain why, um, or how much of a risk they are. But it's just like, I don't know. I've watched a couple of horror movies, and I know when I see certain things happening, then I'm not gonna take my chances with it. So that's sort of the attitude that a lot of people have with it. It's just far less nuanced, and it sort of frustrates me when it's like, well, bring me, like, if you slowly told me the story, then maybe I would understand. But if you're trying to take someone into your culture, it's like, hey, if you're coming into Mormon land, if you're, gonna come and, like, come to church, then there's you just don't swear. Like, you don't say swear words. Like, that's just part of the culture. The people are gonna look at you sideways, and you shouldn't feel judged for it because you kind of didn't grow up in the same culture. But you still have to be aware of what other people are ready to accept when it comes to other people's behavior, no matter how much they do or do not know. um it's important to keep in mind.
love and respect Native American culture. So
Right.
shouted at me and explained why I cannot whistle at night.
You can't explain something like that in 12 seconds, especially when it's like, he obviously was exaggerating when he said, like, thousands of years of Native American culture, folklore, like, shouted at me and explained to me why I can't do that. But it's like, you're not giving an explanation. You can't explain that. The only thing that you can really do in 12 seconds, you can't do that. There's skinwalkers, you're going to get us killed. Like, that's pretty much the only thing that you can explain to somebody. And so all that they're going to get initially is going to be, okay, you think it's something very serious. But I think, for anybody who is skeptical, they're going to hear that and be like, yeah, right, okay, like, because of your fictional boogeyman, like, you're going to, shout me down and slap me in the face. I'd be pretty pissed about that. And it's not going to help convince me that you treated me that way. So there's a big reason why I think a lot of people end up being anti-Christian, in America over the past couple decades, is because of that sort of, I'm going to force this down your throat and you just got to go along with it. And it's like, the moment that I put a little bit of skepticism in there, you know, do I do I sound like an atheist when I talk about other religions than Christianity, or than whatever it is? It's just like, the healthy skepticism that I have applies to all of these, every religion. Um, but what frustrates me is that non-denominational religions tend to get a lot of slack when it's very unfair towards denominational religion. And I think it's just sort of contingent on what people are concerned about in today's day and age, where we are in a country that is mostly what's the word? Mostly founded upon the principles of Christianity and in sort of Western culture, and they kind of people grew up with that or have seen the error of the ways with a lot of the history of that, and so they end up wanting to reject it more and more, so it just ends up being a problem. As a kid, I was told the folklore of La Llorona. If me and my friends were walking down the street at night and saw a woman that they wanted to approach, not gonna lie, I would be scared, but I wouldn't hit them. I'd want to go home if anything. La Llorona is a very, very interesting uh, folklore story, tale, cryptid. I've seen some video evidence that is touted to be La Llorona. Still haven't watched the Conjuring thing about that one, but I definitely think that there's something like the fact that there's something that is occurring, over like years and years, where it's like that there's something documentable about that, where it's like, is this like social contagion? Is it mass hysteria, or is it something greater? It's like, I don't know. Like, can we prove that it's all just because of sort of the social hysteria, social contagion that turned into hysteria with the have you seen this man, the dream guy, the guy who shows up in everybody's dreams, like, is that just social contagion, or is it actually something real, something that's not measurable, but also not scientifically explainable? Like, if this guy isn't truly anything, then is it just that it's like social contagion is a real thing, but why is it that there's like videos of this thing happening? Why is it that there's like this certain amount of stuff that it ends up sort of being like, I can't really prove that it exists, and I can't really prove that it doesn't, but I feel like there's something going on. 100% mass hysteria. Every Mexican household has been told this. It's basically it. Well, I don't know. Like, does that just like cause people to go out and like dress up as like a woman in like sort of a bridesmaid with like what, like, I don't know. I've seen a couple of videos where it's like, oh well, she like disappeared suddenly, and I've seen staged videos, and I've been able to perceive that's like, yeah, this is clearly staged. This is very fake, and like in reviewing videos like that, but like, I don't know, like, I feel like there's still something to that. Why did it start with one person just telling one story, and then it just grew into something more? Or did perhaps somebody at one point walk the earth and leave something behind, a little piece of them behind that we can't exactly, measure, but is still, you know, corporeal in a way. Anyhow.
And I absolutely love and respect Native American culture. So to this day, I have never whistled past sunset.
I find this admission quite interesting, because it's like, I love and respect Native American culture. It's like, well, what aspects of it? Like, because if you do it with something that is perceived as, not part of like the cultural hegemony, or not traditionally like sort of the um traditional view, or the majority held view, or the just, I feel like it's just non-white. Like, Christianity, for whatever reason, is associated with being white, and so therefore, because of white people being the majority, even though every single time I talk about this, it just comes up where it's just like the stupid what's the word, um what is the word? I actually did overclock my stupid brain. Homogeneous, heterogeneous, outgroup, homogeneity bias, something to do with genetics. It's the part of genetics that you see. What is the stupid word for it? Phenotype. Phenotypical. Right. A phenotype is a set of observable characteristics. So, in America, we have a phenotypical. I suppose you could just like boil it down to colorism. We have a very phenotypical perception when it comes to ethnic groups, and it's literally just like, well, if you are this color, you must be part of this ethnic group, and it's just ridiculous. It's like the way that I've described it is, imagine if you discriminated based off of nose shape and size. Imagine if you discriminated based off of like ear shape and size or eye color or whatever it is. It's like it is clearly an unjust thing to do. There's no merits to you being born with immutable characteristics that give you no advantage or disadvantage whatsoever. And even if it does give you an advantage or disadvantage, it's just like everybody's got trade-offs. Like, I don't know. Content of the character type of a deal. But as I say, to categorize the entirety of the world into white and non-white is just ridiculously short-sighted. There's no nuance to that, and it's like, I don't know, dragon culture just doesn't struggle with that. I'll just say that much. Well, I don't know, it did. Anyhow, but it's just kind of funny that it's like, what we categorize as white has changed at different times, and you could be all sorts of different ethnic groups from different places and mix them all together because the melting pot of America and whatnot. It's just like, I don't even know why we end up talking about it, but the reason why I brought it up is because I feel like, the majority of the people who sort of founded the nation, and some of the ideals that came with the founding of the nation, it was just a little bit silly. It's what was I going to say? I feel like there's a rejection of Christianity, and more people are critical of Christianity and reject Christian religious thinking. And I just think we should reject all religious thinking when it comes to identify as white. No comment. I don't identify with with anything in particular, but throw off my groove. What was I saying? I think we reject Christianity because we see where the poison, we associate it with poison, and I think the poison is religious thought when it is zero objective basis for your beliefs forced onto other people. That is poisonous. That is poisonous religious thinking. So we ate that food and then we spat it out because we got poisoned with it. So we have sort of a psychological intolerance for it. We don't like that anymore. But when it comes to that we don't realize that the poison, the ingredient is like tasteless, colorless, odorless, and that it can actually be used in anything. It can be used, there are people who believe in quote unquote science who are just as religious, if not more religious than most Christians nowadays. There are plenty of people who just don't use objective evidence to back up their beliefs, their claims, and people aren't willing to. People are far more lenient on cultures and folklore and whatnot that aren't Christian, that aren't American when it comes to that religious thinking and the harms thereof. So let me just
even inside.
fix
That's
this up.
because one of my buddies grabbed me by the shirt and he goes, "Don't whistle inside because if your fucking window's open." you're done. So
Right.
yeah, that post was no joke. That's legit.
See, and it's funny that it's no joke, it's legit that they do believe that. Like that's sort of what that proves to me. It's like, well, they do believe that, but do they does that mean that it is real? And that's sort of the question that I sort of want to leave off with. Can you prove that it is real, and can you, in an objective way, which I think the answer is no, and can you prove that to me that the faith is worth believing in? Can you instill a faith in me? And perhaps that's what I want to do in the next episode, because I've just gone 1 hour and I've actually got to leave. But I do have another TikTok video, and then I think I'm going to go into sort of maybe delving further into the issue of sort of the beliefs that come with it. And really, what I want to hear is the stories. Give me the parts of the folklore and the culture and everything that made you gain that faith in it, and I will see what I think about it. So yeah, I do want to explore that in the next episode, but I've got to go now. So stay tuned, and I'll be back sooner or later to do it. So we'll see ya. Alrighty. Give me a moment. We should be good now. Okay. Alrighty, so I've decided that I'm going to just like what's the word? Split the recordings into splice the recordings into one. So I'm just going to continue on where I left off. Except I am going to read out this. We'll show this on stream, because I did kind of forget that I had to do that. Well, I don't have to, but I want to. So that's the stream summary. That's not what I meant to do. It's the Twitch recap. There we go. Twitch recap 2023. I should probably, there we go. Twitch recap 2023. This is my scores for this year. This is how I've done. So that's cool. We got 64 hours watched. I mean, I don't know. 64 hours is a lot, frankly. I actually don't know how much I streamed. I may have had like around 64 hours, 32 streams and 5 categories, 4 clips. Probably a couple of those made by me. Clips are like, I don't get them too often. Top stream reached 5 viewers. Was that at one time? So I guess that's the high score for now. One time. We've had. That's a lot of chats. Wow, 1,905 chats. Very nice. This is interesting to see. Top 5 categories being Okay, so yeah, clearly Subnautica, Cuphead, and Outlaws would be the top 10%. I did a fair amount of Cuphead streams when I first came back around July or so. Going through those right now, as a matter of fact. And then Subnautica, I just spent way too much time in that one, trying to get those stupid the achievements done. And then Outlaws, I guess Outlaws I streamed just barely more than below 0, right? Oh wait, what does top 10% mean? Does that mean like a top 10% viewed game, or like? Because then now I see that Outlaws and Outlaws 2 were recorded as wait, top category. Let me see this. I wonder if it's like based off of like following or something like that. But apparently we've got an extra space here because I didn't like stream enough games or something like that, which is kind of funny. You got Outlast, Super Cow? Welcome as well, forgot to say. Um, Outlast is pretty fun. It's a little bit silly in some ways, but it is fun. I feel like I'm too small. Let me make myself a bit larger. Larger than life. Okay, let me see. Then I got bonus achievements, 2 achievements. I don't really recall what those were, but yeah, 25 followers this year. That's pretty fun. It's pretty cool. Um, my loudest fans. Are these in order? I don't think these are in order. So there you are. We've got all sorts of people. I like No Name just really sticks out there. But oh, there's a goat emote. Goat moti. Okay. Oh yeah, stream my recap. Look at that. Very cool. I did the thing that they wanted me to do. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Does it, viewer just shows as like what I've done on Twitch. What? Really? 954? I may not have actively watched. I may have had like a stream on in the background or something like that. Fallout 4? Overwatch Season 2? See, I don't remember watching any of these. At least not actively. I think I may have been only sleeping. Yeah, wait. Right. Yeah, I think I did have a couple of like I'll just put on Twitch like in the background. So I may have done that a couple of times. But anyhow, um let me get back to the topic at hand here. I have to pull up my stuff again. So where I'd left off was you know, what did I have any final thoughts on that? Maybe I'll just review the final moments of this video just to see if I wanted to say anything else on this topic.
That's because one of my buddies grabbed me by the shirt and he goes, "Don't whistle inside because if your fucking window's open, you're done." So yeah, that post was no joke. That's legit.
Oh right, because I was thinking about like his wording of no joke. The way that I interpret that is it's no joke that people do take
So
this what's the word, this superstition seriously. It's like there are people who believe in this and they believe it very very highly. They have a lot of faith slash fear in this thing, and it's like that's not the part that bothers me, that people believe in it. It's sort of the implication that other people should without really telling us why, because that story doesn't convince me that skinwalkers are real. It convinces me that people think they're real. Excuse my water pouring right now. Because it's like I don't know, if someone hears that story and it convinces, it's like they never heard of skinwalkers before and it convinces them that they are real, it's like, well, I don't know. Seeing is believing. Am I right? Anyhow, this is the next video. I believe it was like a stitch of another video that was in the comments of that or something like that. And maybe I'll look through some actually that I should do that first. I'll look at the comments on that video. control click to follow link. Oh, it was just lagging. Okay. Because if I go here, let me, come on. I don't know why. Apparently, TikTok on desktop like locks your F11. That's strange. TikTok looks really strange on like, bro. There's nothing behind those eyes at all. We do love that. Did it really just like I just every single comment of any cat online is just you're so Portuguese. It's kind of great. I have to open the thing again. There we go. I don't know, guess we'll read some comments here. My wife is native and I whistled and in her sleep she knocks the wind out of me. That's pretty impressive. Like it's so instinctive. Like that's how deep those fears lie. I can't whistle, so I guess I'm safe. That's the skill issue. I'm like the opposite. I just like whistle like as part of stimming. Accidentally did it while camping. I don't whistle inside because when I saw a person walk past my window, ring the doorbell, and then they didn't walk back past my window. Bro? So it's like they don't even have to come inside. See, I don't know. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear more stories like that. Maybe that'll convince me. I love urbex. Oh, what? Where is this? Is this at like a gym or something? This stuff fascinates me so much. I'm gonna have to mute the VOD upon re-upload because of this stupid music, but I think the music is actually quite loud. Another destroyed locker room. Massive swimming pools. Is this like a high school or something like that? What is this building? Yeah, it makes me really sad to see such a like place that's just rife for it's paint. That's clearly paint. Like that is clearly paint, sir. Like, okay. Anyhow, I love urbex so much. That's an old YMCA building, one of the comments says, huh? This is the exact YMCA I went to as a kid. Oh, interesting. That's very interesting. Huh. I was wondering, I was like, why is it so many, why are there so many things like strewn? It's like there's climbing and there's like swimming and there's little like playrooms and stuff. It's just like, what is this? Makes sense as a YMCA. I didn't, I can assume that yeah, I learned something today. All right.
So if you're skeptical of S-walkers,
stop it. Okay. This is the next video that I was going to speak on.
So if you're skeptical of S-walkers, why don't you whistle at night?
There's one thing that, like, S-walker, like, you can't say Wendigo. Like, clearly, like, that's against the rules, but you can't even say skinwalker either. Like you have to say S Walker. Like this is the sort of TikTok culture that kind of frustrates me, where it's like, yeah, like stop it though. Like with just say what you want to say. Like, do you really have to like censor it? And I don't think I don't I don't think a lot of the times when people censor words, like when they say like grape and stuff like that. Oh, am I? Did the stream go down? Are you serious? There should be nothing wrong with my internet right now. But clearly there is. I think I know what the issue is. So, for some incomprehensibly retarded reason, um our Google Fiber, Google Nest, whatever the piss it is, has decided that the way that I wired everything up was bad. So it's like you have the fiber and it's like one Ethernet cable comes out of the fiber, right? Um as far as I'm aware, I think you can only get one Ethernet cable out of the fiber. But we had that plugged into a gigabit switch that they gave us from TP-Link for whatever reason. I'm not sure why it was TP-Link specifically. It doesn't matter. But that's like a um 5 port switch, and it is gigabit. Um but it's like for some reason, like what I did, what it was set up as before is you plug in the Ethernet, you plug the fiber into the home Google, like the stupid Google thing, and then you plug in it has one port on it out, so it's like one in, one out, and then the one that goes out was plugged into the switch, and then that switch goes all the way over to this switch over here in this room, and then it goes out to all the, you know, wired devices that I have connected in this room. I think what was happening, because at some point there was some issue, and I thought, well, maybe if I just plug in the fibers directly to the switch there, then it'll be fine. And apparently that isn't the case, because like I was getting like 200 megabits, and I didn't know why. The internet went down. I think what happened is it was going off of like somehow it was going off of the second Wi-Fi extender point, which we had connected to another Ethernet cable, like to go upstairs or whatever. I think somehow it was connecting to that one via Wi-Fi or something like that, because it was trying to go to the router instead of the switch, because of the switch that's like, I don't even know. So rather than just connecting to the fiber, it was cutting my speeds down to 200 megabits per second when I have like, you know, gigabit fiber is about 800 to 700 to 800. So apparently when it got unplugged upstairs like a moment ago, it killed my internet, which is excellent. Which is just excellent that that happened. But anyhow, guess I'm gonna continue. Where was I at with this? People, a lot of times on TikTok when people are censoring words, it's because like I think I'd said grape. Well, they say grape all the time instead of the word that they can't say because they're afraid of being censored and the algorithm catching wind of what they're trying to say. So it's like It's not that the algorithm necessarily has any problems with what they're trying to say, it's that they don't want to say it in a particular way. And that's sort of my issue with it as a whole, is like, you don't have to, like can't you just do what you're supposed, like just say what you're supposed to say? Like, why do you have an issue with me saying it in a particular way? Like, kind of frustrates me. But I think the reason why she says S walkers is for a different reason. That's because no one's getting censored for saying skinwalker. Um, they're probably trying not to offend people. And I feel like that's sort of worse in this context. Anyhow, um,
So if you're skeptical of S-walkers, why don't you whistle at night? And to answer that, I use what I'd like to call the Russian roulette analogy. Now,
I this is an incredibly fallacious way to to frame this, because I'll let us speak
imagine you're
for
just
just
watching
a
TV
moment.
sitting on the couch when someone in your family comes up to you, hands you a gun, and says, "There might be a bullet in here. You want to play a game of Russian roulette with me?" And with that knowledge, knowing that there's a chance that in that chamber, one of the 6 chambers, there might be a bullet in there, would you risk that potential danger? And going off of that,
There would be a bullet in there, but that bullet would be part of a round, so there would be a round in there. Yeah, pedantry. That's what we do.
would you whistle at night, knowing that there's the potential danger of an S-walker out there?
If you are skeptical of them, if you are skeptical of skinwalkers, then you don't believe that there is a potential danger. Like, point blank, pun intended. If you don't believe that it exists, then you aren't going to believe in the potential that they might exist. Like, you're clearly going to be convinced on that. That's kind of the point. Like, that's the frustrating thing. It's like, there could be a bullet in any of that. What I'm saying is that there's not a round in the gun at all. It's completely unloaded, because I know it doesn't exist. Like, that's sort of the line I'm trying to draw, where it's like, well, the Russian roulette, like, there could be something out there.
Because I know I wouldn't. So if you're
It's like,
skeptical,
yeah, if you knew that there was one in there, if you were told there is one in there, then it'd be like, yeah, I don't know how much I want to take my chances on that. But it's just, you know, I want to be convinced on this one, but I'm not entirely convinced. I want to see if maybe there's some sort of a story to look up, but I don't know. Perhaps someday I'll change my mind on it, but otherwise, as of right now, it's just like, oh, the Russian roulette kind of doesn't make me that doesn't convince me. Like, it's like you say you want to what's the word? Like, if I'm not a believer, and you're like, okay, let me convince you, and you your argument is, oh, well, it could exist. Okay, but it doesn't. So what's your point? It's kind of frustrating. Like, what you should be doing is telling me stories to make me less skeptical. You should be telling me the evidence that brought you to your faith and convincing me in that way. Dang, I really wish I could have said all of that yesterday, because I feel like that's practically all I really had to say on the situation. But yeah, I think I'll just split the recordings here, and then I'll just like rename the stream. I don't want to be super messy with it. Yeah, I'll just split the recordings. Is probably the best way to do it.